Very warm Teshidale to all the dignitaries, guests, Tibet support groups, and Tibetans joining us today at the inauguration of the 3rd Geneva Forum 2020. My name is Tile Chuki and I will be your host for today's program. The first Geneva Forum was held in 2018 in the backdrop of China's 3rd Universal Periodic Review at the UN Human Rights Council. It brought together a select group of human rights experts, practitioners, academicians, activists, diplomats, advocates, and activists for a day-long forum to report and discuss the human rights situation in regions under the People's Republic of China. It had representations from all the regions, including Tibet, East Turkestan, Southern Mongolia, and Hong Kong, as well as affected countries like Taiwan. Following the success and based on the overwhelming feedback, it was decided to hold the Geneva Forum as an annual event. The second Geneva Forum was held for 2 days, and now we are in the 3rd edition. I would like to welcome, in this regard, our representative, Kongo Chimarinzila from Tibet Bureau, Geneva, to welcome the gathering.
Very well warming greeting and Tashi Delek from Tibet Bureau Geneva to each and every one of you present here today. Honorable President of Central Tibetan Administration, Sijong Dr. Lobsang Sengye, Honorable Member of Indian Parliament, Shri Ripun Boraji, Honorable Member of Swiss National Council, Councillor Madam Regula Reis, Honorable Member of Italian Senate, Senator Mr. Roberto Rampi, Honorable Member of Czech Republic Parliament, Mr. František Kopsirba, Honorable Member of Bundestag, Mr. Michael Brandt, President of Austria Association of Municipality, Mayor Alfred Riedel, respected representative from various mission, diplomat, expert, academician, activists, journalists, friends, and supporter of Tibet and Tibetan joining us via live program. We are very honored and humbled to host you all and welcome you to the 3rd Geneva Forum 2020 Virtual Week. Today, the Wuhan-originated COVID-19 pandemic has wreaked havoc across the world, killing thousands of people and affecting millions. Due to the suppression of the doctors and medical practitioners by Chinese Communist Party government of China, we all are paying a heavy price today. The world has come to stand still, and we all are now struggling to adjust to new normal. It is now task upon us today to raise our voice against human rights violation in China, even more urgently and strongly because the COVID-19 pandemic has shown us that Chinese operation has global implication. Therefore, to amplify this urgent need, we consider it of utmost importance to organize Geneva Forum virtually instead of cancelling it. This year's theme, Geneva Forum, is to deliberate and report on the declining freedom of religion in region under China. China continued to persecute Tibetan Buddhists, Muslim, and Christian, destroying monastery, mosque, and church, and syncretizing religion to prevent political control. For us Tibetan, this is not just religious persecution. China is attacking the core of Tibetan culture and identity. It is aiming to wipe out an entire nation and an ancient civilization. It goes beyond just freedom of religion. This is the question of survival of a race and its rich historical tradition. With Belt and Road Initiative, China wants to exercise dominion over entire Asia and the world. And the destruction of identity and belief is just the first stepping stone of the Chinese Communist Party. With this background, I would like to pose the following question, which I hope will be deliberated and answered in our upcoming discussion. 1. Where are the larger ramifications orienting its policy on freedom of religious to muster control of political gain? 2. Is the international community in need of new strategy to ensure freedom of religion or belief in China? 3. Can the country continues to give priority to bilateral and multilateral trade relations without calling China on the egregious human rights violation? I am hopeful that through this forum, we will build a network of organizations and experts focusing on human rights and religious freedom in China to help develop coordinated efforts to challenge and improve China's human rights record. We also strive to strengthen mainstream media attention and public discourse on the deteriorating human rights record in the most remote part under the rule of Chinese Communist Party. On this note, I welcome you all once again. Thank you, and long live His Holiness the 14th Great Dalai Lama, the symbol of world peace. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative Chimirinzila, for that thoughtful welcome note, and also for posing those larger questions for the upcoming panel discussions. I would now like to request President Dr. Lobsang Sangye, Central Tibetan Administration, to launch the book, Tibet Was Never Part of China, but Middle Way Approach Remains a Viable Solution in Czech language. This book was initially published in English and Tibetan and Chinese languages, and with the help of Lungta and our strong supporter Andrea, we have been able to translate it in Czech language. So we request Kongo Sikyong Dr. Lobsang Sangye to please launch this book at this inaugural function of the 3rd Geneva Forum 2020. Thank you so much. For the benefit of all our live viewers, I would like to specify, thank you, Kumo, for sharing it. For the benefit of all our live viewers and participants and speakers, I would like to specify that the PDF version of this book will be available on tibet.net as well as tibetoffice.ch, our websites, and hope that you will be able to share these PDF versions as widely as possible. Moving on to our next important part of this inaugural program, I would like to request President of the Central Tibetan Administration, Dr. Lobsang Sangye, to please deliver the keynote presidential address. Just as a brief introduction, Dr. Lobsang Sangye is the first democratically elected president of the Central Tibetan Administration, following the devolution of His Holiness the Dalai Lama's temporal role in 2011, and is currently on a second presidential term, which he won in 2016. He has unveiled the 550 vision shaping Tibet's political future aimed at restoring freedom in Tibet and the return of His Holiness the Dalai Lama to Tibet in the five-year term, while simultaneously strategizing the Tibet movement for the next 50 years if needed. He is the first Tibetan to earn a Doctor of Juridical Science and has organized an unprecedented series of conferences between Chinese and Tibetan scholars, including a meeting between His Holiness the Dalai Lama and 35 Chinese scholars. He has received a citation award honoring the democratic institution of the CTA as envisioned by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, by the National Endowment for Democracy, Takasu Award by the Takasu Foundation, the Gold Medal for Outstanding Contribution to Public Discourse from the Historical Society of Trinity College, Ratan Samman by Hansraj College, and Bharatiya Chatra Sansad. He is a legal scholar with expertise in international human rights law, democratic constitutionalism, and conflict resolution. He has given lectures published in academic journals like the Journal of Democracy, East Asia, and International Law, and has been consulted by various media outlets globally. Over to you, President of the Central Tibetan Administration, Dr. Lobsang Sangye.
Thank you. And first of all, I would like to applaud the Office of Tibet based in Geneva for organizing this, virtual webinar now on the issue of China's policy on freedom of religion and its global impact. Actually, we all should be in the beautiful city of Switzerland in Geneva, where we all should be meeting in person, shaking our hands, giving each other a hug, and we will get this emotional social connection. But because of this coronavirus, which originated in China and which has created havoc all over the world, not just economically, but socially and psychologically, mainly because they didn't share the information with the rest of the world on time. Some international organizations have said, had the Chinese government shared the information 3 or 6 weeks, prior, then 95% of this, the impact or the negative impact of the pandemic could have been prevented. So clearly, freedom is very important. Democracy is very important. Transparency is very important because China lacks democracy. China lacks freedom. China lacks democracy and transparency, and the whole world is paying a huge price. I hope that we will meet in person next year and we get to go back to normal. Till then, I wish you all to remain safe and remain strong, and never forget that the pandemic was caused by lack of transparency and democracy in China. Now, as for the title, I can see my co-panelists, regular reads. Michael Brand should be quite joining us soon, and Frantisek Kopriva, my friend, and Roberto Rampi. I want to thank all of you for joining us virtually to show your solidarity, like you always do, and show your support, which you have been doing for many, many years, and to continue to be with us, because one day soon, basic freedom will be restored in Tibet, and Tibetans will enjoy their religious freedom. Now, I want to say two things. Number one, when we first started this Geneva Forum in 2018, we had to discuss this in 2016 and planned it in 2017. At that time, the global environment was a bit difficult in that sense, that many countries believed and supported China and Chinese leadership, partly because of the economic interests, and some actually believe that China or the Chinese government or the Communist Party with China do more good than bad. And they looked at Tibet and said, okay, Tibet is an exception. We can, overlook this and deal with China diplomatically and economically. And at that time, I said, at the exact same forum, Geneva Forum, I said, either we transform China or China will transform you. So China is no more a challenge for 6 million Tibetans. It's a global challenge. Its action has global implications. So when I said that, I think some people must have thought, okay, being a refugee, being a victim, he is being a bit emotional. So that's what we expect from Tibetans. But a few months ago, the Secretary of the U.S. government said almost exactly the same thing. Either we change China or China will change you. So hence, the Chinese government is a major challenge for the whole world. Through the Belt and Road Initiative, they're making efforts. Through their intrusive interference in international agencies like the United Nations, WHO, World Economic Forum, you just name it. They are everywhere. The tentacles of the Communist Party of China are everywhere. They're influencing these agencies and in a corrosive way. For example, they are trying to influence United Nations to their liking. They're putting key personnel in different agencies of the United Nations so that they will have a bigger voice. Their agenda can be pushed. They are trying to redefine, human rights. For example, United Nations included, many governments, many experts praised the Chinese government for poverty alleviation. And they often parrot this line. The Chinese government has succeeded in lifting 500 million Chinese people from poverty. So their poverty alleviation program is a success. Everybody applauded, everybody praised them. But for Tibetans, what does poverty alleviation means? It means 500,000 Tibetans, especially from Tibetan, villages and nomadic areas, are forcibly recruited and taken to urban setting and put in labor camps. So, same thing which took place or is taking place with the Uyghurs, where from 1 million to 2 million Uyghurs are put in labor camp. But if you read the policy statements of the Chinese government, all these are done in the name of poverty alleviation. So yes, poverty alleviation for Chinese people mean one thing, but poverty alleviation for Tibetan people means forced labor camp, concentration camps. Poverty alleviation for Uyghurs means forced labor camp and concentration camps. So these we must know. So when international agencies and experts, in the name of objectivity, in the name of being scientific, praise Chinese government policies, they should know what they're praising. Now, why I say this is because the poverty alleviation policy of the Chinese government was praised so much, they got emboldened. They act with impunity. Hence, they put 500,000 Tibetans in labor camp, 2 million, up to 2 million Uyghurs in labor camps. Exactly on the religious freedom front too. Unfortunately, we have been the witness for the last 60 years. The Communist Party of China, they don't believe in religious freedom. All they have done is destroyed our monasteries and nunneries, disrobe our monks and nuns, right? 98% of monasteries and nunneries in Tibet were destroyed. 99.9% of monks and nuns were disrobed. Religious freedom that we know it, that we enjoy in the outside world, do not exist in Tibet. Now, just a few years ago, Serta Monastery, Larungar, with 20,000 monks and nuns, was physically destroyed. And then many monks and nuns, thousands of them, were chased away from Larungar. And Yashingar with 5,000 or 6,000 nuns, if you just Google images, you will find half the Larungar nunnery is gone. So what it shows is that Chinese government for the last 60 years continue to destroy our monasteries and disrobe our monks and nuns, thereby denying us religious freedom. Now, this is a Tibet-specific case. Now, how does it have a global impact? It does. The Chinese government has published, has publicly stated or shared a document number 5, which clearly says that for a reincarnated Lama to be recognized, you must register at the district level. The Communist Party of the district level will decide, and you can register at the state level and national level. So if you are a Lama, if you are a religious leader, you must be registered with the local Communist Party. And if the Communist Party officials approve your candidacy, then only you will be a reincarnated Lama. So on the one hand, it's laughable that the Communist Party of China, which is an atheist, which do not believe in religion at all they have done is destroyed our religion. They have been the judge as far as reincarnation is concerned. Now, they have done this with the Vatican as well. With the agreement with the Vatican, the Catholic Church, unfortunately, the document is not released, but from all accounts, the agreement with the Vatican is that the Communist Party of China will appoint or select a bishop, and the Vatican will agree with it. Now, there is an underlying contradiction. Now, normally in Buddhism, so is in Christianity, so is in Islam, or so is in Judaism, or in Hinduism. Religion is a personal matter. It's a matter of heart and mind. Government should not interfere, far less a Communist Party and atheist party. In our case, in the case of Vatican, what they've agreed to is that the Communist Party and atheist organization will select a pope, and a Vatican will agree to it. Now, if it is only Catholic specific practices, then it's all right. But it has global implication. Number one, once the Vatican agrees that the Communist Party's appointed or designated bishop will be a bishop of a church, thereby they are legitimizing the Chinese government action, saying if they do with the same with the Buddhist leaders of Tibetan faith, then the Vatican can do so. So now I'm sure the Communist Party can do so. So here, by agreeing with this by the Vatican, now the Communist Party will come to Tibetans and say, Vatican agrees with the Catholic bishop, so you should agree with the Tibetan Lamas as far as Tibetan Buddhism is concerned. Then they will say, okay, the Muslims, the Uyghurs should agree as far as the Imams are concerned, and the rabbis of Judaism should agree, Pandits of Hinduism should agree, and so on and so forth. Now, this system, what the Chinese Communist Party is doing in Tibet and in China, will be seen and copycat or implemented by other governments around the world. And they will say, if Vatican is fine with the Communist Party of China, Vatican should be okay with us as far as Catholic priests in different parts of the countries as well. Hence, whatever happened in Tibet or is happening in Tibet will have a major global impact. Hence, Tibet issue is very, very important. So that's why we felt that, on this topic, China's policy on freedom of religion and global impact should be analyzed, should be studied by everybody, so that we can push back, press the Chinese government that religious freedom is personal. Religious freedom should be left to the people who practice religion, and the government should stay out of it. Now, when I made the other point that either you transform China or China will transform you, 2018, not many people were supportive of this idea. Fortunately, recently Pew Research Center has come out with a survey. So they have surveyed more than a dozen countries where they have asked the question, do you trust the Chinese government and Chinese leadership. Overwhelmingly, 70, 75% to 80, 84% of people in different countries, including Japan, Australia, New Zealand, many European countries in North America, with the US and Canada, have overwhelmingly said no, they do not trust the Chinese government and Chinese leadership. 3 years ago, it was different. When I was in Canada, 63 or 4% of Canadians trusted or believed that China and Chinese leadership will do great things and good for Canada and world at large. So this is a turning point at the world stage, where the trust deficit of Chinese government and Communist Party of China is real. Hence, we must push back and say freedom is, basic. Democracy is universal. Human rights should be granted, and religious freedom should be respected. So that's why this forum is very important. And through this, all the participants will learn from the eyes and examples of, Tibet and Tibetan people. And I've always said this: if you want to understand China, if you truly want to understand what Communist Party of China is capable of, you must study and you must understand Tibet. So Tibet has been in the forefront of seeking freedom vis-a-vis the Chinese government, and others are joining. So I welcome all our friends in Europe and all around the world, and I could see our Uyghur brothers and sisters, Mongolians and others are also participating, and I wish you all the best. And I want to again applaud the hard work of all the staff members of Office of Tibet and here in Dharamsala with the Department of Information and International Relations. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, President Dr. Lobsang Sangay, for that comprehensive analysis of what is the current situation inside Tibet, especially emphasizing how religion is personal and the government should not interfere in the personal matters of people, especially when it comes to freedom of religion. And also re-emphasizing the fact that China is aiming at sinicizing the entire religious traditions of not just Tibetan Buddhism, but also Muslims and Christians, and they are resorting to destruction of monasteries, mosques, as well as churches, and using the Vatican deal to legitimize their control for political gains on religious matters. Thank you so much, President Dr. Lobsang Sangay, for those empowering and comprehensive analysis. I would want to say that our Honorable Member of Rajya Sabha, Upper House of the Indian Parliament, Shri Ripun Boraji, is not able to join us today, especially because of his emergency party meeting. So I would now request a member of National Council Switzerland, Councillor Regula Ritz, to please address the gathering and deliver the guest of honor inaugural statement. Before she takes the floor, please permit me to introduce her. Ms. Regula Ritz is a member of the National Council in Switzerland. She is a politician in the Green Party of Switzerland, which she also headed in two separate occasions. First, as the co-president from 2012 to 2016, and then the president from 2016 to 2020. Her professional stint, spanning well over a decade in various capacities, have seen her in the roles like the Councillor of the City of Bern, Director for Civil Engineering, Traffic and Urban Greenery, Member for Civil Engineering, Traffic and Urban Greenery, Member of the Grand Council of the Canton of Bern, and engagement in numerous commissions with a focus on education, finance, economic and state policy, among others. She is a historian by training and graduated from the University of Bern. Over to you, Councillor Regula Ritz.
Well, thank you for this warm welcome. Yes, I'm very glad to be with you this afternoon here in Switzerland. Well, Honorable President Dr. Lobsang Sangay, honorable members of the other national parliaments, and dear Tibetans all over the world. It is a great honor for me to attend the opening of this third Geneva Forum, and I thank you warmly for the invitation. Unfortunately, we cannot meet in Geneva today because of the COVID-19 crisis. It is all the more important that we meet today in the digital space because despite of the pandemic, we cannot ignore the global issue of human rights and the difficult situation of Tibetans in the People's Republic of China. As you know, as you heard, I am a member of the Swiss Parliament and a member also of the parliamentary group on Tibet. This is very important because it shows that the issue of Tibet is really an issue that is not linked to a special party, because all parliamentarians from all parties in Switzerland are represented in this group, and we are all committed to the respect of human rights and the fundamental values that guide humanity. Our parliamentary group, for instance, criticized, therefore, that our government, the Federal Council, has changed its attitude toward Tibet since the 1960s. In the past, many Tibetan refugees have been welcomed in Switzerland and the Dalai Lama was received. Now, the Federal Council is pursuing the One China policy, tolerates Chinese interventions against Tibetan organizations, also in Switzerland, and puts Tibetan asylum seekers in hopeless situations. We are trying to change this here every day. Because for us, Switzerland has a special responsibility in this matter. Switzerland is the depositary state of the Geneva Conventions, whose implementation is regulated by the International Committee of the Red Cross. My country stands for democracy, human rights, and international humanitarian law. And this is a problem because Switzerland is also the first country in Europe to sign a free trade agreement with the People's Republic of China. And we therefore have a great responsibility to fight the temptation to place economic interests about the defense of human rights. We know that Swiss companies also want to participate in the Belt and Road Initiative and run the risk of prioritizing profit with the demand of political reform. And this cannot be, and that's why we meet today, also in the next days in Geneva, in the digital room, to fight against these false priorities. Human rights are always the most important thing we have to fight for, and then this is also good for economy. Especially for me as also a member of the Green Party, it is clear in sustainability rules that economic cooperation must always go hand in hand with implementation of human rights and the social development goals. Healthy economy means democracy as well as human and environmental rights. So we all fight together for this value. And what is very important for me is that the COVID-19 crisis in particular has revealed another problem. In many countries, also in Switzerland, the supply chains with China have broken down in a very short time. And this has additionally blocked the local economy and has showed us that no economy in the world should to be dependent on another country as much as we are now on China. And that means that the relationship between all countries in China should be molded by respect, of course, but also by resilience and by a real dialogue also about human rights and democracy. It is therefore a good moment, I think, in the middle of this COVID-19 crisis to continue our work for reforms on democracy and fundamental rights all over the world, and especially in Tibet and also in the People's Republic of China. Pardon? Do you listen? Do you hear me? Hello?
Hello, yes.
Okay. I heard something. Okay, I can continue. I'm quite at the end of my speech because For me, it is clear that human rights naturally include freedom of religion, and we all know that religious freedom in Tibet has suffered massively under the occupation of China. And therefore, I welcome very much that the freedom of religion is focused on the third Geneva Forum, and I'm looking very forward to the discussions and the decisions taking place now. And I wish you all, and I wish us all, an exciting debate, and that the future gives all Tibetans hope and the freedom to live according to their values and also their religion. I firmly believe that your and our work will ultimately pay off, or to quote the Dalai Lama at the end, choose to be optimistic, it feels better. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Councillor Regularitz, for those inspiring words, and also for your continued support to the movement, as well as for the Tibetans settled in Switzerland. Thank you so much. Moving on to our next important speaker, we have Senator Roberto Rampi from Senate of Italy. Before I call upon him, I would like to introduce Senator Roberto Rampi is a member of the Italian Senate of the Republic. Before joining this office, he was an elected official in the Chamber of Deputies from 2013 to 2018 from the Democratic Party. He has also been a representative from the group of Socialists, Democrats, and Greens in the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe since 2018. He is active across several committees in various capacities, like the Committee on Culture, Science, Education, and Media, as well as the Vice President, and as a full member in the Committee on Culture, Science, Education, and Media, and Subcommittee on other committees. He has graduated with a degree in Theoretical Philosophy from the State University of Milan. Over to you, Senator Roberto Rampi.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to be here. And I also would be really great to be together, really, in Geneva, and to be connected in personal, because as our president told us, it's totally different energy that we can have together. But we have to try to go and to do our work also in distance for that period, for that difficult period. And it's true, we have to remember us, but to remember all the world, that one of the reasons because we have COVID-19 and because we have that pandemic situation is because the not freedom situation of China. If China would be a freedom state, probably we can knew before, really before, about COVID-19. We can try together, all human in the world, to find a situation to combat that virus. But China decided not to let the world know about that virus because they want to tell all the world that they are perfect, that they have no problem, they never had problem. And so the problem became bigger and bigger. I believe that attitude, that cultural attitude of the governor of China of today, the actual governor of China, not about Chinese people and not about Chinese culture, but about who is now at government in China, is a very big problem for all the world. And so when I was a young child, and when I was a young council of town of my town in Vimercate, that is the town where I'm today, I already was a supporter of Free Tibet, and I really believed about Tibet culture as a culture that can help all the world. Today, we heard a lot about climate change, but we know that the idea of harmony, the idea of relationship between human and nature in culture, in Tibet culture, is so important. So Tibet can teach a lot to all the world about that harmony, about the harmony between human and nature. And now that's a science objective, is something that all the world is working for. But we have that ancient culture that can help us, because we can solve that problem only by the way of science, by the way of technology, by the way of law. The changement that we need for climate change is a cultural changement, and I say also a spiritual changement. And for other reason, the respectful idea of all culture, of all religion, that is so strong inside culture of Tibet, and also from the religious point of view in Tibet, is so important for all people of the world. The world is so connected today. We are so near one to each other because we are connected by airplane, by train, but everything by technology. As today we are connected from many parts of the world, but that connection had to be supported from a cultural connection, from the respectful of every diversity, for the importance of every diversity. And I believe the millennium culture of Tibet can help the world to stay together. And last things, but not least, so important, and our president told us about that. Tibetan community has done a very great and democratic work from any years. We all believe that His Holiness Dalai Lama is so important for us and teach us so many important things. But we also know that the Tibetan community decided to find a democratic way to be a real government of all the Tibetan citizens. And I believe that is a real solution for Tibet. We know from many years that Tibet also look at the autonomy system, for example, in the north part of Italy, to propose China a solution to stay together. We know that Tibetan people want to find a solution and not finding solution with China people. But I believe that the idea of Tibet that, as I said, I already supported for many, many years, is nowadays more important for all the world. For all minorities inside China, Hong Kong, and many others, Islamic minority, and Falun Gong, and many others minority, but also for all people around the world. Nowadays, one of most important problems of all people around the world is the future of China. If future of China would be a democratic and pluralistic and a respectful future with other people around the world, we can be bigger together, all the world people with Chinese people. But if China believe, as they do together, as the actual government believe together, to control the world and not to grow together, but to control all the world, growing only them, that is something that is not sustainable for all the democracy all around the world. So that is a problem. That was the Tibetan problem many years ago, but nowadays exactly the Tibetan problem became a whole world problem. Yes, we don't have China exactly inside our country as Tibetan has. They don't came inside our country with tank, okay, but they came inside our country with many, many other kinds of tanks that are stronger, maybe also of the tank. So our solidarity with Tibetan people and with their suffering situation, that is so important because all we believe about that nowadays is became something different, became something that we need to solve a real problem of all the world. So we can work together for that. And thank you very much. Thank you to all Tibetan people for their culture and for their support and for their spiritual energy that they give to all the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Senator Roberto Rampi. I think your words are very inspiring as well as analytical, because what you have spoken on the importance of the relationship between humans as well as the nature, which has been so beautifully exhibited in the Tibetan culture, as well as highlighting the fact that the Tibetan problem has now become the problem of the entire world. Yes, China may not have entered the world, attacked the other countries through tanks and, military power, but definitely they have entered the lives of millions of people, especially by how they mishandled and suppressed the Wuhan whistleblowers. And I think this is a very, very important fact that you have highlighted. We would like to once again thank you for your continued support for the Tibetans and the cause of Tibet. Thank you so much, Senator. Moving on to our next important speaker, we would like to request Honorable Member of House of Deputies and Co-President of Czech Parliamentarian Support Group of Tibet, Honorable Member František Kopřiva, to deliver his guest of honor inaugural statement. Before he does so, I would like to introduce him to all our viewers. Mr. Kopřiva is a member of the Chamber of Deputies of the Parliament of the Czech Republic. He represents the Czech Pirate Party. In the European Union, he vice chairs the EU Affairs Committee. He is also a delegate to the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe among the 324 parliamentarians from 47 Council of European nations who are speaking for the 830 million Europeans on human rights and democracy. His work on Tibet is most notably observed in the co-founding role of Czech Parliamentarian Support Group for Tibet, where he also serves as the co-chairperson. Mr. Kopřiva is the graduate of Charles University and Czech Technical University, both in Prague. Over to you, Mr. Kopřiva.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. Dear Mr. President, dear colleagues, dear Tibetans, I'm sorry I cannot be in person with you and to exchange or share this kata scarf as Tibetans are used to, and it's always so warm welcoming for me. But still, I'm glad I can be here with you, at least online. So thank you for inviting me. Just to summarize, as my first speaker already introduced me, so I will just add that we still have one of the biggest support groups on Tibet in the Czech Parliament. We have over 50 members across the political spectrum from both chambers of the parliament. And we established the group 2 years ago when we started this term, because we want to continue in the legacy of Václav Havel, the first Czech president after the Velvet Revolution, after we get rid of the communist regime. And our president, former President Václav Havel, invited His Holiness the Dalai Lama in the 1990 to Prague as the first statesman who actually did it ever. So we try to continue this legacy and strengthen our relations with the Central Tibetan administrations and also with the small but great Tibetan community in Prague. And we try to promote our shared values like human rights, democracy, and others. Actually, since I'm in the European Affairs Committee, I'm used to travel a lot. But since the pandemic started, I'm not able to. So just a fun fact that my last foreign business trip has been to Dharamsala in India in March, where I've attended with my colleague Dana Balcerova the celebration, the commemoration of the Tibetan Uprising Day with the Central Tibetan administrations and members of the Tibetan parliament. And it's still very strong in our memory. We learned a lot, and I want to thank you once again for this great opportunity. As we could see during the pandemic, during the first wave and even now, the authoritarian regimes use or misuse this pandemic to get rid of human rights and to strengthen their position. We could see it in Europe, for example, in Hungary. We can see it now in Poland, but it's everywhere, and we can see that democracies, even if it's harder for democratic states to handle some of the anti-pandemic measures, I think I read an article, an analysis that still the democratic countries prevail better combating the pandemics. And as Mr. President already said, if there were democracy in China, it's a speculation, but we could say that if there was more transparency and the regime wasn't afraid, we could have informations many weeks beforehand, and maybe we could handle the pandemics better. So I think this is very important to mention. And it does apply in all fields of human rights, right? Not only when it comes to pandemics, but I think that people all around the world deserve democracy. And we talked about this during our visit to Dharamsala, that it's democracy. If there was democracy in China, it's not just focused on Uyghurs or Chinese Christians or Tibetans or other minorities. It's also for Chinese people themselves, because we are not, if we are speaking about what China does, it's the Chinese regime. And I strongly believe that everyone deserves to live in a democratic state. When it comes to the Chinese influence in the Czech Republic and in the European Union, I can add to what my colleagues already said, that it's not that we are occupied, but we can see that the Chinese regime is trying to increase the influence here. And our Czech president, he has been promoting the Chinese values and investments here in the Czech Republic. And it was a big theater when the Chinese president came to Prague, I think 4 or 5 years ago. It was really like theatrical, like the Czech government and the Czech president welcomed the Chinese president, and it was all like happy and no like criticism. But as the time went, all citizens now can see that there are basically no Chinese investments. There are a few acquisitions, but they don't bring job places or like any companies with additional values. They are just acquisitions of, for example, buildings or football clubs. So there are no more jobs thanks to them. So I think the citizens can see it now, and of course our president won't say, "Oh, I did a mistake, I was wrong." Because he's like that. But I think the Czech citizens now can more and more see that the Chinese regime has more like downsides than they are promising to us, and that we should be more critical when it comes to our relations with China. So I think the Czech citizens can see it now, and I hope that next year we have parliamentary elections again, so I'm not sure whether me personally or my party, whether we will continue in the parliament, but I hope that our that the next parliamentarians will maintain our support group and they will work on it, and that we will strengthen our relationships even more, and we will carry this legacy of Václav Havel and defending human rights and democracy all around the world together. Well, that's probably it from me. Thank you again very much for having this chance to see you and hear you, at least online, and I'm looking forward to meeting you maybe some other time. Have a good day.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kopsiva, for those words, especially for reminiscing the very important and deep relationship between Czech Republic and the Tibetan people, especially with the visit of His Holiness the Dalai Lama during Václav Havel's presidency. I think we have had very strong and deep-rooted relation, as well as reminiscing your visit to Central Tibetan Administration's headquarters in Dharamsala. I think a lot of people back in Dharamsala remember you and your words very fondly. So thank you so much for your continued support to the cause of Tibet, and also for stating that how China is playing theatrics when it comes to the global stage in the name of support, but rather when it comes to the real on-ground situation, the reality is completely different. So thank you so much for those words. I have been informed by our friends and as well as our team from the Tibet TV network that we are getting a lot of interesting comments from the 50 Cent Army group of Chinese Communist Party on our Facebook Live, videos. So I think, if not anything, your message and everybody who has spoken here, your messages are going straight to the people who have the power to make a difference. So thank you so much for those strong words of support. Moving on to our next speaker, unfortunately, we do not have Mr. Michael Brandt, member of Bundestag Germany, with us today because of his prior commitments. However, he has sent us his video message. Before I play the video message, please permit me to give a brief introduction of Mr. Michael Brandt. He is a long-serving member of the German Parliament and a profiled advocate on human rights. He has been elected Speaker for Human Rights by the CDU and CSU parliamentary group, which is part of the ruling parties in Germany. He is also the chairman of the Tibet parliamentary group in the German parliament, member of the NATO Parliamentary Assembly, and co-chair of the Inter-Parliamentary Alliance on China. Mr. Brandt has been a very strong supporter of Tibet, and he has also very strongly written on the 25 years of disappearance, enforced disappearance of Panchen Lama. So I request Namgela to please play the video message of Honorable Member of Bundestag Germany, Michael Brandt.
Dear friends, Honorable Prime Minister, distinguished guests of this conference. At the beginning, please allow me to thank Prime Minister Lobsang Sangay for his tireless work, for his people, and for the invitation to this conference. Mr. Prime Minister, all the friends of Tibet follow your international activities carefully, and we are really happy to see the good results of your efforts. Please allow me now to address the guests of the conference. I'm deeply sorry that I'm not able to participate on this conference. As everybody can see, the corona pandemic requires our full attention in our countries. In Germany, we have gone into the so-called lockdown light. Many families, businesses, medical workers, and many others are under stress. As somebody who is deeply involved in managing this crisis in my home region, I sadly could not guarantee my presence in this important conference. So I take the liberty to address all of you in that video statement at least. Let me be clear, talking about lockdown light might sound a little bit strange to Tibetans, Tibet is, as we all know, for decades in a lockdown now. The Chinese government is trying hard since many decades to suppress one of the oldest and surely one of the most precious cultures on this planet, the Tibetan culture. As history has proven many times, such a violent strategy against the peaceful nation will not prevail. As a German, I am fully aware that history has a place for those who fight for freedom and dignity. It is not my responsibility to tell the proud Tibetan people what to do and what not to do. For that, the Prime Minister is a much better person and in a much better position. But I see it as the responsibility to every free human being to address the situation of the Tibetan nation. And I do see it as an obligation, as a moral and as a political obligation, to support the justified struggle of the Tibetans for freedom and dignity. Therefore, I just want to say, me and others around the globe may not be taking part in this specific conference, but Tibet and the Tibetan nation can rely on the fact that this exceptional nation and that most impressive culture of Tibet do have and will have strong support of friends throughout the world. We are with you all the time. We are thinking of you in every moment, and we are focused on overcoming the obstacles which stand between brutal regime and decent, peace-loving and proud nation of Tibet. So please accept my heartfelt greetings and my commitment, along with many others around the globe, to continue our support for the Tibetans and cherish your friendship with the Tibetan nation. All the best for you in Geneva and around the world from Germany. May God bless you and all Tibetans inside Tibet and abroad.
That was Honorable Mr. Michael Brandt, who is the member of Bundestag, sending us his warm regards. Following this, we have another short video message by Honorable President of Austrian Association of Municipalities and current Mayor Alfred Riedel. Mr. Alfred Riedel is a mayor of his hometown of Griffenworth since 1990. In 2001, he was elected president of the Lower Austrian Association of Municipalities. In 2017, he was also elected president of the Austrian Association of Municipalities. In this function, he represents the interests of 2,084 Austrian cities and municipalities. Also, as a brief anecdote, our president, Dr. Lobsang Sangay, had visited Austria very recently, and during that time, Mayor Alfred Riedel was unfortunately had met with an accident and he was hospitalized, but he was so insistent on meeting and greeting President Dr. Lobsang Sangay that he requested President to visit him in the hospital and meet him. So he is a very strong supporter for Tibet and the Tibetan people. Even though his message is rather long, I will suggest all our viewers to view his entire message in the website, but I request Namgela to just show the video for a minute.
Eure Heiligkeit, der Dalai Lama, sehr geehrter Herr Präsident Lobsang Sangay, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, liebe Freunde, ich freue mich sehr über die Einladung zur 3. Genfer Forumwoche 2020. Leider habe ich nur die Möglichkeit, eine Videobotschaft zu übermitteln. Wie Sie sehen können, schicke ich Ihnen meine Grüße heute vom neu errichteten und dieses Jahr eröffneten Stupa in Grafenwörth in Niederösterreich. Ich kann Ihnen nur sagen, ich freue mich wirklich sehr, diesen wunderbaren Friedenstempel inmitten der Wagramer Weinberge in meiner Gemeinde zu haben. Glauben Sie mir, es war gar nicht so einfach, einen buddhistischen Stupa inmitten unserer traditionell katholisch geprägten Region zu bauen. Am Ende hat sich jedoch die Überzeugung, Religionsfreiheit leben zu können, durchgesetzt. Und selbst die anfänglichen Kritiker kommen heute nach Grafenwörth, um im Stupa innezuhalten, zu meditieren oder einfach nur zu verweilen. Gibt es was Schöneres? Ich denke nein. Daher möchte ich es, wie seine Heiligkeit der Dalai Lama und Papst Franziskus halten, die beide einmal sehr schön gesagt haben. Eine Voraussetzung für den Frieden ist der Respekt vor dem Anderssein und vor der Vielfältigkeit des Lebens. Andere Kulturen sind keine Feinde, gegen die man sich verteidigen muss, sondern spiegeln auf verschiedene Weise den unerschöpflichen Reichtum menschlichen Lebens wider. Beide, obwohl aus anderen Religionen, aus unterschiedlichen Kulturen, haben das auf ihre Weise formuliert. Im Inhalt geht es jedoch um das Gleiche, tolerant und offen für das andere zu sein, andere zu akzeptieren und anzunehmen, so wie sie sind, und Vielfalt zuzulassen.
Thank you so much. So that was Honorable President of Austrian Association of Municipalities, Alfred Riedel. I had viewed his message in entirety, and he sends his best wishes, and also he made an effort to go and shoot the video in front of the Buddhist stupa, and he explains that the entire stupa is built in a predominantly Christian region, and he says that initially there were some critics about it. However, eventually, because they respect the religion, because they respect each other as human beings, the stupa was established, and the initial critics were also became the supporters of the stupa construction, and also many Christians and other people from other religion do visit the stupa, and I think that stupa is definitely an icon for religious harmony as well as peace. So thank you so much for that message, President Alfred Riedel. We come here today at the close of this inaugural function. Before I say thank you to all the honorable guests, I would like to speak to our viewers and also explain them that the entire 2 days of Geneva Forum 2020 has now been converted into a virtual week. So today was the inaugural panel. Tomorrow we have the panel on China's policy on freedom of religion under the global framework. The day after, that is the 11th November, we have second panel, religious persecution, crackdown on people of faith in China. On 12th November, we have panel number 3, which is on Tibetan Buddhist system of reincarnation and why China wants to control it. And panel number 4 on the last day of the week, countering China's persecution of believers, way forward, followed by the declaration of Geneva Forum 2020 and a brief closing note. That is the Geneva Forum week. I first of all would like to thank our president, Dr. Lobsang Sangay, for taking out time from his busy schedule and delivering his key presidential note. I would like to thank all my guests, especially, of course, who have participated in person, Councillor Regular Ritz, Senator Roberto Rumpi, Member of House of Deputies, Honorable Francisca Copriwa, and also the video messages from Honorable Member of Bundestag, Michael Brandt, as well as Mayor of Grafenwörth and Honorable President of Austrian Association of Municipalities, Alfred Riedel. I would also like to thank our media partners, Tibettv, Tibet.net, Poetak Asia, as well as Shizang, which is in the Chinese language. I would like to thank our team from Tibetan Computer Resource Center, TCRC, for designing our web page, as well as Narthang Press for helping us with the posters as well as print materials. Thank you so much, all of the viewers and the guests. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow, same time, for our panel number 1 discussion. Thank you.